addiction, death, fentanyl, crime rates. Over the past few years, the news has been booming with words like this, and for good reason. Americans of every demographic are being indiscriminately slain by these new street drugs. We will be looking into the social pressures that led them to becoming so available, its side effects including crime and the degradation of a good portion of today's youth, and what local groups can do to change the issue in our city. There's no denying that the years before the pandemic and the global crisis itself created massive social pressures on people. Swaths of young people at home with inattentive parents, the value of our dollar is falling, and political disturbances regularly creating even more division between our already divided nation. The quality of living for many people fell. Annual inflation rose and continues to rise at a rate of 2.95% since 2019. We watch goods become more expensive, and drug users watch drugs fall in price, and in turn, bodies fell. In Sacramento alone, 2018 to 2019, we saw murders jump from 28 to 38, then to 55 in 2020, 58 in 2021, and the current year continues to follow the trend with an increase of nearly 34% annually. Drug overdoses have risen as well, with the state record this year 3,446 fentanyl-related deaths in California alone this year, and counting. Methamphetamine has also been a major issue, the second most frequently used illicit drug behind cannabis nationally. With upticks in homelessness, you can see the effects of the drug on that population. People spend anywhere from $3 to $120 in one transaction to chase their next high, while living in society's overlooked side roads and sullen alleys. The real kicker is 40% of California's street drugs contain a fatal dose of fentanyl. People in search of MDMA and Adderall are suddenly receiving lethal doses of the potent opioid. Even seasoned opioid users and heroin addicts are caught off guard, as what to them may be their daily fix could be their last dose. According to the CDC, fentanyl is 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine, so it's understandable that people who in their life have never even had the thought of trying heroin are dying as first-time users of drug lookalikes. A main perpetrator of the fentanyl epidemic is the press bill, whether it's simulating Percocet, Xanax, Adderall, Smackers. These homemade pills are manufactured usually in the United States, with raw materials being imported either by mail or trafficked through the Mexican border. The DEA's new One Pill Can Kill initiative focused on combating the fake pill threat, which led to the seizure of more than 10.2 million fentanyl pills and approximately 980 pounds of fentanyl powder during the period of May 23rd through September 8th, 2022. That's nearly 36 million lethal doses of a drug available in nearly every city in the United States. Young people are dying. The homeless population especially is dying and being impacted in swaths, and this is all happening right now. But just because the drug is so deadly doesn't mean it's a guaranteed death sentence. Fentanyl, although deadly, is reportedly incredibly euphoric for a user, and its short-acting nature causes repeated doses throughout the day to avoid becoming dopesick. A fentanyl user risks their life every time they smoke, pop, or snort a pill, and some essentially develop a tolerance so strong they are no longer affected by the drug, only leading to further use, as the withdrawals from fentanyl are so unfathomably painful. We are essentially seeing a similar problem as the 1980s crack epidemic, a steady decrease in the quality of living for low-income and middle-class people, a newer, cheaper, and more addictive street drug that can be manufactured in one's own home with raw goods, and a susceptible demographic of young people. But this time the marketing is on point, from rap music to social media platforms and public schools. These pills, commonly brightly colored, resembling candy or real prescriptions, are sold in high volume to young people who see their peers using the drug, hear their favorite musicians rapping about the prescriptions they simulate, and using them themselves. The main perpetration for the import of fentanyl into the United States is the Jalisco and Sinaloa cartels, who import either the raw material into the United States or pre-pressed for distribution by their drug trafficking networks. The cartels have always been able to move massive quantities of drugs throughout our southern border, but fentanyl is cheaper to produce than heroin, as it is synthetic, can be moved in smaller volumes, and is far stronger than a traditional opioid, and is available orally, unlike heroin. And this deadly drug is also often pressed into pills where methamphetamine is used to counteract the strong opioid, effectively creating a speedball. This generation is already susceptible enough, and the support network for addiction in the U.S. is especially poor for low-income Americans, and is very limited. NA and AA are available to all, but not everyone has access or even the desire to change these habits. It's a major social issue with deep roots in individuals' lives, so as a society, things like addiction have always been hard to treat directly. In places like Canada, they have free use areas where users can have their drugs tested and used in a safe and monitored area. And although these small case studies thus far have proved effective, community outreach programs hypothetically can offer needle swap and test areas. Medical personnel can be nearby for mishaps, so developing safer ways to administer drugs where users are not frowned upon for a very complicated problem hopefully can undo some of the damage the war on drugs has done and change our perspectives as a society until we have the right sources to combat the problem in our cities. Other steps in the meantime is to combat the fentanyl issue in its home front. These drugs aren't made in the United States. They're smuggled in, and someone is letting it happen. Being poor search methods or just the sheer number of vehicles crossing our southern border, tons of this deadly drug are coming through and killing. In 2021, 107,000 Americans died from overdoses, and as stated, these drugs are not produced here. Either border personnel need to be better trained in the search and seizure process for these narcotics, or pressure needs to be put on Mexico to regulate the issue. But the cartel holds so much power in that country, the police wear masks. So it's really difficult, and really nobody is going to fix it because it's a genuine driver in our economy as well. Everyone has an indulgence, and capitalism feeds on our indulgences, because legal or illegal, money will be spent and people will get their next high.